I'm Dr. Maharana Pratap, an Associate Professor of China Studies, Director of the Center for Northeast Asian Studies at OP Jindal Global University. I'm also a Senior Fellow at Usanas Foundation. I would like to extend our gratitude to the Ministry of External Affairs for being our main partner for this event. As we begin our event today, I would like to invite our chief guest, Ambassador Lakshmi Puri, for lighting of the lamp. I would also like to invite Mr. Tejinder Khanna, former Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, Mr. Abhinav Pandya, and Dr. S. Jain. Could we please have you on stage for the lamp lighting ceremony?
मेरा हाथ आ रहा है
Thank you, Shiparna ji. On behalf of Usanas Foundation, I would like to welcome our today's special guest and keynote speaker, Ambassador Lakshmi Puri. She will be reaching here soon. I also welcome Dr. Sumit, Seth, Mr. Krupakar from Ministry of External Affairs, our co-host and all the eminent speakers and delegates, participants at Maharana Pratap Annual Security Dialogue 2023. I also welcome Mr. Jain, CEO of Logically, our Platinum category sponsor, India Narrative, our again Platinum category sponsor, Mr. Kunal Bagla. Our other sponsors, although they are not here, I would like to thank Thyrocare, Pharmacy, Endine, Manipal Global Education, Argate, Promadon, our knowledge partner, Central University of Jammu and Kashmir, Vivekanand International Foundation, and Center for North Asian Studies of Jindal Global University. Indeed, it is a moment of great bliss and proud for us who host this event. For a upcoming think tank like ours, this occasion, this grand dialogue in our dedication to life and legacy of Maharana Pratap to the peaceful world order means a lot for us. Over the last 2.5 years, it has been an interesting journey for Usanas Foundation, where Mr. Abhinav Pandya started Usanas Foundation after finishing his Kashmir assignment. We were all hopeful but never expected to organize this event in such a short span of existence. However, Almighty God has been very kind and blessed us in our journey so far. In the last 2.5 years, we have successfully organized 40 plus webinars, interviews and roundtable discussions, 350 plus articles, issue briefs, research paper and 3 international conferences with our objective to take the foreign policy discourse beyond the national capital city, Delhi, raise awareness on the strategic issue and explore India's global narrative. We have made sincere efforts to find our niche and space in the highly competitive world of think tank. I believe that this event, with your blessings, good wishes and participation, will prove to be a milestone in Usanas Foundation future journey. Thank you very much. I again welcome you all.
Thank you, Dr. Jain. I would now like to welcome Lieutenant General Hasnain for delivering special remarks. Through most of his 40-year illustrious career, General Hasnain has served in turbulent environments and hotspots, from Sri Lanka to Siachen Glacier, from the northeast to Jammu and Kashmir, and in UN operations from Mozambique to Rwanda. He has seen it all in crucial appointments. He has served 7 tours in Jammu and Kashmir, decorated almost all of them, and knows the JNK conflict comprehensively. He commanded the Indian Army's Srinagar-based 15 Corps and today is one of the most foremost writers and analysts on JNK, Pakistan, the Middle East, and transnational extremist violence. Sir, could we please have you on stage?
Thank you very much for that introduction. I just want a confirmation that I can be heard at your end.
Yes, very much.
Can someone give me a confirmation that I am audible at your end?
Yes, very much.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Could someone give me a confirmation
Yes, sir.
that I am audible at your end?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Ambassador Puri, Abhinav, Master Trigunayat, Mr. Khanna, the range of luminaries who are present on this grand event. Thank you, first of all, for giving me the honor of making this special event. Very short 10-12 minutes, actually. Okay. My compliments to all of you. The very, very successful phase 1 that you conducted on 9th and 10th of February. Usanas Foundation, you have gone places. The 2.5 years that you have come into existence, I find myself always honored, full of pride, to be invited to any of your events. And I shall always be looking forward. Apologies that I'm not able to join you on this offline segment. But your involvement with some G20 activities, I realize the importance of these events. In the 10-12 minutes that I have, let me focus on the lead up to the current times, emerging new world order, the lead up to it, the cusp period, which are the last 3 years ever since the pandemic, and what is India's growing significance today. It makes it so important for us to study the new world order and India's place. From 1989 or 2023. Now I'm saying 1989 is primarily because of the end of the Cold War. That's when the old world order actually collapsed virtually. The bipolar world collapsed. The new groupings emerged. What are the characteristics of this period from 1989 to 2020, 2023? You had new groupings, as I said. You found a new NATO emerging, the eastern march of NATO, the collapse of Warsaw Pact. You suddenly found economics receiving a tremendous attention all over the world. You also found global terror. It started emerging and came to a head on 9/11. Afghanistan, America led to subsequently the American involvement in Afghanistan. ISIS and Al-Qaeda became bywords, the lexicon of all the people who study geopolitics, look at international affairs. The emergence of China, peaceful initially, not so peaceful. Fall and the rise of Russia. So important. The fall and the rise of Russia. We saw in 1989-90 the fall and then the emergence of Russia. The intended US shift from Europe to the Indo-Pacific. Of course, that time it was called the Asia-Pacific. The intention was to shift, but there were always events, Afghanistan, the Middle East, etc., which kept drawing the United States back other areas. As I've already mentioned, the world was in the grip of global terror, but along with global terror was the whole aspect of emerging radicalization, something with which the world hasn't really found answer. Attempts at peace in the Middle East, from later years, Abraham Accords, things like that. And of late, the recent thing that we have just found, China's entry into the foray, China's foray into the Middle East as far as the Saudi-Iranian. We also found the Iranian nuclearization. I mean, one can go on and on to pick areas around the world which emerged very, very significant for most of our country. From 2020, that's the what I call the cusp period, 2020 to 2023. This is a very interesting and a very important period for us because you suddenly found, once again, like 1989, the global economic, social challenges. For us, India, it was a great opportunity. We became the medicine basket of the world. Global terror took a backseat. You remember in 2018, ISIS was in its prime, and then it got defeated. By 2018, we found both the Al-Qaeda and the ISIS, except for the gravitation of terror groups into Afghanistan, the vacant spaces in Afghanistan, global terror did backseat. There was an emerging new bipolarity. You know, the world had seen unipolarity from 89, 90 onwards. And suddenly you found the China-Russia law, which is becoming very important. China-Russia tie-up, the United States, EU, re-emergence of the US, EU together, the re-emergence of the importance of NATO. You suddenly found an aggressive China. Good warrior diplomacy adopted and not to effect, I would say, to negative effect. You also found China's ambitions increasing, Xi Jinping perhaps advancing all his aspirations to be in sync with his own age. Everything was being looked at in 2049, now we're looking at everything. 15, almost 14, 15 years earlier. We also found the virtual failure of the Belt and Road initiative. It didn't sort of give that kind of success which was expected. Then emerged at the end of the pandemic, this new elephant in the room, the Ukraine-Russia, which to my mind, describing it very briefly, an unwinnable war, helping keep focus away from the Indo-Pacific, bringing it back to Europe, bringing it back to East, bringing it to Eurasia, actually, in many ways. It's a long war, to my mind, it's not coming up. It's a war in which a lot of new military strategies are being tried out. Some old military strategies being revisited. New technologies like drones, for example, cyber, etc., all coming to the fore. Out here, new geographies are being looked at. Yes, the whole aspect of Russia's deep interest in the Black Sea. All this is coming to the fore. It's very, very clear that the new Russia, the emerging, the foreign Russia and the reproach might seems that China wishes to involve itself in the Middle East, stabilize the Middle East on its terms. Obviously, conflicts with the United States bringing it back to another region, that's the Middle East. Much as it is expected that the conflicts will emerge to a greater extent in the Indo-Pacific. All that is happening now. Eurasia, of course, becoming far more important. Central Asia, an area of great potential, somehow ignored in this entire thing, in the entire dynamics. The AFPAC region, from where the United States has grown, losing its importance in terms of attention, not its strategic importance. Its nuisance potential is well realistically assess our own significance and our potential. And it starts, to my mind, the most important aspect is economic. $5 trillion and the $10 billion aim, aspiration. By 2030, 5 trillion. By 2035, 10 trillion, which our Honorable Prime Minister has laid down for the nation. I think this is one of the most important aspects, which the world will probably look at in the near future. The fact that India has bounced back from the pandemic, from a minus 24%, minus 7%, come back to a 5.5, 6.5%, whatever the growth rate is. But that is a huge plus. And if that is what is so important, that obviously this is going to be one of the very, very important aspects which will be India's future role in the world. The ability to revive from the pandemic, to my mind, the resilience that it has demonstrated, the ability to become virtually the world's vaccine and medicine chest, all this, and its willingness to help, its willingness for outreach to the other parts of the developing world, has given India a stature much higher than it could have achieved by any other geopolitical events or geopolitical initiatives. It has got a proven HR potential, a human resource potential. We are contributing tremendously world's industry, science, politics, academics, research in many international spheres today, and is all being recognized. You look at this, many of the who's who companies of the world, and you see the CEOs are all from India. Our own geostrategy, as it's called, emerging, is already making India an emerging hub. If you remember, the biggest crib that we always had was the fact that India's economy only had 17% contribution to the manufacturing sector. And it was the service industry which contributed the maximum otherwise. Now India will hopefully see a fillip on the manufacturing. A middle part of it, India will still continue to be treated as a middle part of the cusp of being a big power. Influence, the role in international politics, all this for our own people and for the neighborhood. All this is increasing India's stature hugely. The fact that we are part of, that we are G20, we are chairing G20 this year. Events in 56 cities in India, locations in India, will put India on a completely different way of being looked at. The kind of energy that India has brought to the G20 process. And our neutrality, our ability to abide by multilateralism. We are both members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the RIC. Well, we are also members of the Quad. Not very many nations in the world that boast of that. And lastly, the relationship with the Gulf and the Middle East, last couple of years, last 10 years in particular, it has taken us places. 8 million diaspora living with their heads high. Now, having said all this, last 1 minute, what are the challenges? What are really the challenges for us? For us, the challenges are, we are with the US and the Quad, and we are in a bilateral strategic relationship. Simultaneously, we are with China, we will. Although our neutrality will be respected, but there will be great competition for our vote. And that is something that we will have very, very careful. We need the United States, we need the United States technology, we need international support, we need trade. We equally need to avoid military confrontation at any time. That will bring about a step back. Even as a military man, I'm today confident that India does not need to ever get into a military conflict. What we strongly need, bottom line, is be economically, militarily, and internally strong. Remain neutral, but align our interests with care. Build deterrence. Military power in all domains, land, air, sea, cyber, space, all of them. And establish cordiality and good working relationships with all our neighbors. At the same time, re-examine and review our role as a part of the United Nations and sticking to our 2070 zero emission commitment to the world. I think India will find us, with all these factors put together, shaken together, India will find its true moorings in the new emerging world order. Thank you very much for your time.
Sir, now I would like to invite Mr. Arun Anand, Distinguished Fellow at Usanas and Senior Journalist, Mr. Abhinav Pandya, Ambassador Anil Trigunayat onto the stage for the felicitation of our guests. I would now invite our guests, Mr. Tejinder Khanna, Ambassador Muhammad Maliki, Ambassador of Kingdom of Morocco to India, Madam Karima Maliki. She's not here? Okay.
This is how it is. Great. After 6 years, I'm used to it. Yes.
Lieutenant General Vinod Bhandari.
भूपेंद्र जी रुकिए मैडम को साइड में करो
Ambassador Dimitrios Iano. Please pardon my pronunciation if it's wrong.
मैम प्लीज़ आप पीछे आ जाइए उधर साइड में
Cleo Pascal, Senior Fellow of Foundation of Defense of Democracies.
Please come here. Good to see you. May I?
Ambassador Rahul Kulshresht.
भूपेंद्र जी पीछे आओ ना यार
Professor Shrikant Kondapalli. Mr. Ravi Solanki.
Well, all details fit very well. Perfectly placed. How's that? Oh, Jain.
Vice Admiral Anil Chopra.
But you are Rajasthani. There you go.
Mr. Tanmay Chakrabarti. Shiv Murari Sahai. Alok Bansal.
What's up?
Dr. Sumit Seth. Aditya Rajgol. Mr. S. Swaminathan. Edward Smith. Dr. Sumit Patil. Dr. Oshrit Pilvatkar. Lyric Jain. Yana Mead. Sajid Yusuf. Colonel Vinayak Bhatt. Prachi Mishra. Dr. L. Venkateshwaran. Krupakar Jain. Brigadier Ramakrishna.
भेजा नीचे भी नहीं जा जाओ ठीक चल रहा है मेरा भी अच्छा बढ़िया थोड़ी हाइट कर दो हाइट मुझे दिखता नहीं मेरे को दिखता नहीं मेरी हाइट कम है अच्छा ये रहा है वैसे ही
Abhinav, Abhinav, could I please have you on stage?
They have to do it to you also. Let me do it for you. You can ask.
I would now like to invite Mr. Abhinav Pandya, founder and CEO and director at Usanas Foundation, for his opening remarks.
Hello and welcome. It's indeed a great moment for us to organize Maharana Pratap Annual Geopolitics Dialogue 2023 Part 2. In just 2 years of our existence, we have come to this level and we've organized this conference. I think it's indeed the Almighty God's grace. So before I begin anything, I would like to pray my Sadgurudev Pujya Guruvani Maharaj and Sadguru Pujya Param Pujya Prabhuba for blessing us and for just enabling us to organize this event at this level. So I would like to thank them. And I would also like to thank all the eminent panelists and guests and speakers for having come here today and for making this, for contributing to make this event a great success. And before we begin, I would also like to thank all our sponsors, our platinum category sponsors, Logically, .ai and India Narrative, and our other sponsors, gold category sponsors, Eldine, Farmeasy, Thyrocare, Argate, and Manipal Global Institution, Promodom, and other sponsors. In terms of opening remarks, I don't have much to say because we are already late. There was a huge rally today in the Udaipur city because of some kind of procession, so I'm not going to say much. But what I have to say is that the main theme of this conference India's role in the changing world order. That is something which really strikes me. And the question is that why do we ask this question? Why do we debate this idea of India's role in the changing world order? I think we are at a very, very critical moment. Post Second World War, the world had very different phases. After the Second World War, there was a bipolar world in which the world witnessed Cold Wars. After the disintegration of Soviet Russia, there was a unipolar moment. But then terrorism came up as a major challenge. The world got engaged into a global war against terror. Finally, in the last decade, we have come across changes which are quite disturbing. We can see the rise of powers who want to revise, who want to change the cartography of the world, who want to change the norms and change the standards, redefine the norms, redefine the definitions of the world. So it's something in which looks very chaotic and which is very anarchic. I won't say that at this stage it has already become anarchic, but certainly it is disturbing in many respects. Okay. But definitely, I'm not being very pessimistic here, because any change which comes, always comes with some kind of a discomfort. So I think this is a phase of transition, and we should be very rational and we should be very optimistic about it, but at the same time we have to tread very carefully. For India, it's a very critical moment. We have a leadership which is very assertive, firm and clear-minded. In terms of the security domain, we saw certain measures which the government of India took in the last few years, like the abrogation of the Article 370, banning of extremist organizations like PFI, Jamaat-e-Islami in Kashmir, and various other measures, which certainly show that this is a very different India, and this is an India which cares about its security interests, its foreign policy interests, and yet maintains a very principled stand. In the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war or special operations, whatever we want to call it, India has taken a very principled stand. It's a stand which shows strategic autonomy, but then we are not silent observers, we are not silent bystanders. We have taken an ethical stand, and we have tried to convey to the world that this is not the age of the war, as what our Prime Minister Modi said. And we have also tried to give a new definition that world order should not be seen in the binaries of this or that, or through the prism of completely zero-sum game, zero-sum policy, where you are either towards this side or that side. One has to take a very balanced, very ethical and a moral stand, and the ultimate objective is to have peace through dialogue and diplomacy. So this is a time, I think, where we should discuss what has to be India's role in the future, and this phase of transition, it's not going to be something very momentary. This will last for about a decade or so, and then definitely we are moving into a new world order, which can be called a multipolar world order, and then even the global alignments are changing. There was a time of multilateral organizations, now we are moving towards millilateral entities, we are moving towards bilateral arrangements in the international relations. So certainly there is a lot which is happening, and amidst all this change, amidst all this flurry of different things happening, we need to define what we have to do, and certainly this cannot happen with borrowed wisdom and borrowed knowledge. Most of the IR discourse which is currently prevalent in the world has come up in the European or in the Western academic universities. It's an experience of the Western history. We understand IR today through concepts like separation of power, through concepts like Renaissance, through concepts like Treaty of Westphalia, but certainly the Oriental world, the world in the East, China, India, Japan, they have an entirely different historical experience. So I guess, India needs to find its own narrative, India needs to find its own vision, and with that vision, with that wisdom, we need to navigate our way in the world order coming ahead. This is what I have to say, and I guess I'm not going to waste much of your time. So here I rest my case, and definitely I think next we'll invite Ambassador Anil Trigunayat for his opening remarks. Ambassador Trigunayat has been our mentor for last 2.5 decades, and he has played an immensely critical and a wonderful role in making this event happen and supporting us, mentoring us, guiding us. Sir, over to you.
Good evening, Honorable Governor Sindar Khannaji, Excellencies, former ambassadors, representatives from the Ministry of External Affairs, distinguished panelists and participants. It's a great honor for me to welcome you all to this very important and, in my view, a seminal conference which is focusing essentially on where do we head next. Because the situation around, as Abhinav said, is in a flux. We are living through a churn. And India has its own ways today. We have always had it. If you come to think of it, even when we got our independence and we were not strong enough, but in the international discourse, we created a new discourse. Whether it was in the domain of the Korean War, or it was for the non-alignment movement, or standing for the cause of the world, developing world, providing them a sort of a leadership which really did not exist in that sense. So why are we here today in Mewar? I was just thinking, because Usanas Foundation was born here, and Abhinav lives here, and he also thought, he was working with Vivekananda Foundation, but he thought that it was a good idea to branch out into some other part of India to be able to provide a strategic platform for discussing this. But more importantly, this region of Mewar, this is a region of resistance. This is the region where strategic autonomy truly began. If you come to think of Maharana Pratap himself, he fought for his independence, for his principles. And India today also stands for the strategic autonomy. There are many people who will argue that this is not something that we should be following, but India is a civilizational country. And those of you who follow the civilizational country's path, be it India, be it China, be it Egypt, be it other countries, you will find that they think differently. They cannot be dominated for too long. And they always evolve and come out with new kind of ideas. They assert themselves. Now what is India doing today? Our Prime Minister Modi has often talked about, or for that matter our G20's dictum. The principle is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We are not thinking about ourselves. We are thinking beyond us. We are standing for the world. And we did it when it was extremely important for anybody, or for at all. In the case of Voice of Global South, we all know what the Global South wants. But India's way is of conferment, of discussing, finding out what they actually want, to express their opinion. And that's why this Voice of Global South Summit was conducted by the Prime Minister. He came out with this 4R principle, which you all know about. We are the ones who have been talking about the major challenges of terrorism in the world, because we have suffered from it for 4 decades. United States and the West did not pay due attention to the terrorism until 9/11 happened. I mean, even after that, they were only worried about themselves. But what is happening today in the world is pandemic, which is still continuing to impact economies and the countries, but that has not prevented the wars to take place. Nobody thought that Eurasian war will take place, or Soviet Union will disintegrate so quickly, or there will be a unipolar moment. But we have all seen this in the last 75 years, and we are facing this. There are new kind of alignments are taking place. And as I look at it today, whichever way the Russia-Ukraine war goes, the world is already moving towards Cold War 2.0 scenario. Now, in that kind of a scenario, where will India stand? I do not see India, despite the multiple arrangements and the mini-laterals that are taking place from in different parts of geographies, and we are part of virtually everything, which says a lot about India, that the world cannot do without India being present. 1/6 of the world's population, the largest democracy in the world, the country which is a nuclear power, a space power, and the largest market and the most populous country in the world. General Hasnain spoke about the whole trajectory of our relationship and which way it is going and where India stands. Today, when Prime Minister Modi says that we have dehyphenated our relationship with Israel and Palestine. Both relationships stand on their own. We have great friendships with Saudi Arabia and Iran, between whom recently China tried to create some kind of an approach. We welcome that. India stands, we can talk on the face to President Putin, because he's a great friend also of India. It is a special and privileged strategic partnership that we have with that country. That era of war is over, and President Putin agreed with that. But this is not a war between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war between Russia and the West. This is a war for supremacy, for reasserting your boundaries over the others, your diktat on the others, which India refuses to accept as well. So therefore, it is extremely important that we look at it from that perspective. I know that whether we talk of the kind of situation that is happening, but how we are going to provide the leadership? It is not going to be a military leadership. It is not going to be, we will have enough power, military power to defend ourselves. We are using nuclear power for peaceful uses, but we have to protect ourselves. We are a large country with a very large population. Under every circumstance, we have to do that. But the 5S principle that Prime Minister Modi in his UN address mentioned, and those are very important. And those 5S are, and I'd say that this will be a fitting guiding principle for the world, but definitely for India. One is Samman, respect. The other S stands for Samvad, dialogue. The third one is Sahyog, cooperation, Shanti, peace, and Samriddhi, that is prosperity. So we are working for everyone, for ourselves. So in this conference, we have the highly distinguished and illustrious experts from nearly every field who will be sharing their thoughts, their ideas, and I hope after this conference, we'll be able to call out some key recommendations for the government, because everything is evolving, and when this is evolving, the kind of recommendations that come have a good role to play. So we'll do ourselves our bit in providing that kind of inputs in different areas, because as you know, there are several panels in which many of you will be participating and coming up with your ideas. We'll definitely come out with certain recommendations, and those recommendations will surely help us. One thing I can say today is, you have all seen it, and as a diplomat I had felt it, that 20 years ago, 15 years ago, the Indians used to run after the world, the Western diplomats. Today, Indians, and for that matter even Chinese, are the sought after diplomats. But we have problems in our region. China will always remain our challenge in every single geography. So we have to learn to contest, and we have to learn to somehow cooperate, so that the war that General Hasnain mentioned does not happen. It could even be a design of some powers, erstwhile superpowers, that maybe there is a war between India and China. And then who gains? That's a very big question. And I think we need to be ready for that. Thank you once again, and I must compliment my friend Abhinav for this exceptional effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I would now like to invite Dr. Sumit, Seth, Joint Secretary at the MEA, our co-host, for delivering his opening remarks.
Namaste, good afternoon. Dr. Anita, Jain, Mr. Abhinav, Pandya, my seniors, Honorable Shri Tejendra Khanna sir, some of my senior ambassadors are here, excellencies, distinguished participants, scholars, academicians, strategic thinkers who have joined together for this prestigious Maharana Pratap annual geopolitical dialogue. So I thought, every one of you have spoken something about geopolitics, what are the emerging trends and so on in a broader sense. I thought I'll give you a sense of, as we are the co-host Policy Planning Division of Ministry of External Affairs is a co-host, and it has also undergone various reiteration, renovations as you call it. So I thought I'll give you a back channel story of how this idea what policy planning does. People keep asking, as a diplomat, as a foreign service officer, when I travel here and there, okay, you're in foreign service, you're a diplomat, but what do you do? So of course we keep, informing them what are our roles, how do we represent India, how do we negotiate on behalf of India's national interest, how do we communicate about India's national interest to others. But the problem becomes even more complicated when people ask, what do you do in policy planning? Let me tell you a story which goes back, not very far, few years back, 2015. That was when we organized something called the Heads of Missions Conference, where all the ambassadors from all over the world, Indian ambassadors, they come and we do all, I think all foreign offices do that. So that was, I think, the first Heads of Missions Conference where Prime Minister, after him becoming the Prime Minister in 2014, this was the first event. So he told our people in the ministry, senior leadership of the ministry, that I would come and visit the Foreign Office. I'll sit in the audience. So it created a little bit of nervousness among all of us. Right? He said, no, we all will bring all the ambassadors to 7, that time RCR, now called Lok Kalyan Marg. He said, no, I will sit in the audience, listen to all the presentation. I want to understand, what are you, so. And since the Prime Minister of the country was coming to Foreign Office, all divisions were asked to prepare, think of what questions he can ask. So we prepared a question bank of around hundreds of questions. And after the presentations was finished, he comes on the podium and he asks 101st question, which probably we did not. And that is a very, very telling question, and I am going to share with you. And it's a public information. Some articles have also been written on this. He said, and he spoke in Hindi, and I will speak in Hindi and I will translate for my other friends. He said, "आप सब बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, you're doing a lot of MOUs, visits, but आपके मंत्रालय में सोचता कौन?" And that actually is a very telling, a very deep question. Who thinks in your ministry? You all work on various meetings, bilateral meetings, multilateral meetings, visits, incoming, outgoing, MOUs, agreements, multilateral resolutions. But who thinks in your ministry? And that time the Foreign Secretary, who currently is the External Affairs Minister of India, he also, we had a brainstorming session. Okay, who thinks? He said there is one division where he also worked at some point in his career as an Under Secretary. He said Policy Planning Division would be the division which will do the internal thinking for the ministry. So how do we, think? I'm going to give you a peep inside, because whatever you are going to discuss today and tomorrow will definitely, form some concrete ideas which will come. So there are 3 main tracks on which Policy Planning Division works. One of them is called outreach. Outreach to think tanks, outreach to strategic communities, outreach to individual experts who are, working on a certain subject and so on. And how do we do it? We have created a number of platforms. One of them is called Raisina Dialogue, which was recently concluded. It became this year's edition was the biggest gathering of foreign ministers. We had around 35, 36 foreign ministers who participated. We also created a platform called Global Technology Summit, which happens every November, December. It is, so for Raisina Dialogue, we have a partner called ORF. For Global Technology Summit, we have a partner called Carnegie. We also do Indian Ocean Conference, and one of our partners, India Foundation, Captain Alok Bansal is sitting here, and we organize Indian Ocean Conference, and this year we are going to do it in Bangladesh, right? And then we do something called Asia Economic Dialogue. So the idea of having dialogues on specific themes, widespread themes, complex themes which are coming up to us. Why do we do it? Is because we believe in this dictum that all great ideas in foreign policy do not necessarily come within the 4 walls of the government. We need to go out, seek out these ideas. So that is one of the reasons. And the second approach is that we wanted the dialogue, the discourse on foreign policy to go beyond New Delhi. And And we have started doing events in Pune, in Northeast, in Guwahati, in Nepal. We are going to do one event in Tripura. But somehow the western part of, because it was too close to Delhi, so probably, but when Abhinav Pandya came to us and we had a brainstorming session, I thought this is an excellent idea, that we will constitute an annual dialogue in Udaipur in the memory of the great leader Maharana Pratap, so that we will be able to see how do you see the global trends emerging. What are your priorities, right? How do you see security issues, whether it is internal security or whether it is external security, right? Because it's one of the states which borders with one of our neighboring countries, Pakistan, for example. So what are the specific customized issues which are being built? That's the first thing which we do, outreach. This outreach helps us gather various ideas and so on. And the second part of our job is creating papers, policy memos, policy documents, reports. In childhood, like many of you probably would also, I always used to wait for a weekend newspaper to arrive, because there was a particular game which I always enjoyed doing, was that there used to be dots and there was numbers and you had to join 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then you, at the end of the day, emerged some image. And that always used to be pleasant surprise sometimes, and so on. So the motto of policy planning division is to connect the dots. And the connecting of dots cannot happen unless until you collect the dots. So this exercise, events like Maharana Pratap Geopolitical Dialogue, is to collect these dots. And then we write various reports on this. I hope that the ideas which come up in this 2 days Chintan or churning manthan sessions will help us come up with some new ideas. And the third part of my job is we do something called policy planning dialogue. Each foreign office has a policy planning dialogue themselves. So idea is to share what we do in our Ministry of External Affairs and what they do in their foreign offices, exchange notes, share information, and then bring together ways of understanding the complex world. The world is changing very fast, very uncertain. What is India's role in it? What is the role of our interlocutors? That is what we do. Once upon a time in my previous career, I was a medical doctor. So people keep asking what a medical doctor is doing in policy planning, foreign policy planning division. So I tell them that, as a doctor, I used to begin my day with something called OPD, Outpatient Department. So today I do something called OPD of foreign policy. O for outreach, P for papers, D for dialogues. So that is what we do. This is part of my job. And I was giving a talk somewhere a few weeks back. Somebody asked me this question: what is the fastest way of making a policy? I said, no, in this era of instant coffee and instant noodles, I think people want instant policy. I thought of it, and then I realized the fastest way of making any policy is through speeches. What you write in the first draft, if the top leadership is able to say those lines, it becomes policy. When Prime Minister of India says neighborhood first, it becomes policy. When Prime Minister of India says act east, it becomes a policy. Diplomacy for development becomes a policy. Security and growth for all in the region, SAGAR, becomes a policy. The 5 principles of Indo-Pacific, when he gave a speech in Singapore, in the Shangri-La dialogue, became a policy. That is what, so I'm always going to keenly listen to all of you, because some of your lines I'm going to misappropriate and maybe remix here and there and probably try to add this in the first draft. And who knows, you could be instrumental in creating the next big idea, the next big foreign policy initiative. With these words, I thank you. I am very hopeful that some concrete results will come out of it, and it will help me in my job, and it will help Ministry of External Affairs in furthering bringing new ideas into the foreign policy game. With these words, I thank you, and I wish you all the best to the organizers and all distinguished guests who have come from various places to participate in this conference. Thank you once more.
Enough. Back onto the stage again to felicitate our guest, Krupakar Jain. Abhinav, could you please come to the stage?
supported us in this event. Because I remember almost a year back we spoke about this event, and this has been in the pipeline for almost a year. But thanks to Dr. Seth's vision, first time I met him and it was really very impressive, because he said that let's take this dialogue on national security and foreign policy out of the national capital city, and that was our vision also. So definitely it's a support which has made this happen. Thanks again. So, we had invited His Excellency Harif Muhammad Khan Sahab from Kerala, but it was cancelled at the last moment because of certain health issues. He has sent his message. I'll just read out his message. I am happy to know that Usanas Foundation Udaipur is organizing an international conference, Maharana Pratap Annual Geopolitics Dialogue 2023 from 23rd to 25th of March 2023 at Udaipur. It is commendable that the conference, to be held in association with the Ministry of External Affairs, will have the presence of many international delegates, including Ms. Kolinda Graber, former President of Croatia. I compliment the people behind this endeavor and wish the conference all success. Arif Muhammad Khan.
And with that, we'll move on to the first session of the day. The first session that we have lined up is going to be chaired by Ambassador Anil Trigunayat. So could I please request you to come onto the stage and take your place. This session of about roughly 50 minutes is about the economy, investment and trade, scripting India's growth story in Amritkal 2023 to 2024. Over to you, sir.
We have the Good evening again. May I invite the esteemed panelists? So may I now request the esteemed panelists to kindly join me. Mr. Aman Sinha, Mr. Tanmay Chakravarti, Mr. Swaminathan. Well, as you all know that whatever we may talk about security, we may talk about foreign policy, we may talk about anything else. At the fundamental level, the most important thing is the strong economy of any country. If we are economically strong, we can move ahead in every which direction. And you become the point of attraction for everyone else. India was a golden bird, as we know, Soni ki chidiya. And we had attracted nearly everybody from across the world to come to India. Today's India is once again a resurgent India. We started our economic reforms in 1991 under the international compulsion, essentially, of the situation that happened because of the Gulf Wars. We have had to hypothecate the goals to pay, basically honor our payments to the international community. We never defaulted on anything. We were also, this economic reforms led to the troika of globalization, privatization and liberalization, three policies, brought us to a certain level in the last 30 odd years. India's economic growth has been talked about. Sometimes it was called as Hindu rate of growth, which was said to be a slow rate of growth. We have also seen that in certain sectors, especially in the services sector, India's achievements have been tremendous. India is known as the IT power of the world, and that has given a certain identity to the country. So that is extremely important from our perspective and our point of view. But in the last 9 years, I would say, there has been a greater emphasis on economic development of the country. To take the country to a certain level, Prime Minister Modi spoke of making India a $5 trillion economy by 2025. We are reaching there despite the pandemic, despite the war. We have had to undergo economic reforms, which is an ongoing process. I remember when we were in New York, and Ambassador Kulshresht is here, I went to Boston and met Professor Jeffrey Sachs at the time. And he mentioned to me that India is very slow. It will hardly make it. Last week in the VIF, we had Professor Jeffrey Sachs talk, and he told me, and I told him one word, I said India is not up for sale. We will do our reforms as per our requirements, as per our socio-economic objectives.